Thank you.
That's a record.
This is a split call.
It's a split call?
Split call.
It's a
Thank
split
you.
call.
5-minute call.
Thank you very much,
Lees-Galloway.
Mr. Speaker. Well, I'm surprised to find myself on my feet already after such a short and pathetic call from actually one of the better performing members from the National backbench. But I think Alfred Naro, if he really believed in this bill, if he really had something to say about this bill, if he thought that this was a piece of legislation that was going to make a positive difference for the community he has come to Parliament to represent, he might have said a little bit more than the 30-second contribution we got from him. Mr. Speaker, the Corrections Amendment Bill and the associated supplementary order paper number 171 are absolutely symptomatic of some of the idiosyncrasies of the National Party and of this national-led government. First of all, it expresses their desire to privatise absolutely everything, whether it's our state-owned assets, whether it's aspects of the welfare system, whether it's roadside vehicle checking, or now, of course, it's one of those fundamental core state services or state functions of incarcerating people who have fallen foul of the law. It doesn't matter what it is, this government wants to privatise it. And why do they want to privatise it? Because there's money in it for their mates. That's why. Whether it's selling off our power companies, they're not doing that for mum and dad investors. This is the party of big capital. This is the party of big foreign capital. That's the people who are going to make money out of the privatisation of our prisons, and that's what we're seeing here with this legislation. But it also represents, I think, the absolutely gung-ho, hands-off, arrogant approach that this government takes to governing and legislating. And that's because poor Anne Tolley has to come along with this supplementary order paper to clean up the mess left behind by Judith Collins, who was told at the time, the future leader of the National Party, Judith Collins, who was told when she announced that she was going to ban smoking in prisons, something which I think most members in the House are comfortable with, even though when you ban something, when you ban anything, you get a black market, and of course there's now quite an active black market in tobacco in our prisons. But we were happy to see it happen, but we said to Judith Collins, you need to slow down and do this properly, because New Zealand is actually a democracy. I don't know whether Judith Collins is aware of that. I don't think she really does democracy very well. But New Zealand is a democracy, and what Judith Collins did was illegal. That's what it comes down to. What Judith Collins did was illegal, and now Anne Tolley has to come along and try and clean up that mess. Now, the problem is, of course, this supplementary order paper, first of all, we're not entirely convinced that this actually solves the problem. It may still leave the government open to legal challenges. It may still leave the taxpayers vulnerable to having to pay out more money to prisoners who can take the government to court and challenge their smoking ban. So we're not actually convinced it'll do the job. But what's worse is it's retrospective. This government can't even admit that they got it wrong, that they stuffed it up, that they were too gung-ho, that they were too arrogant. They can't take it on the chin and accept that what has gone already is correct, and that Judith Collins got it wrong, and she opened up the taxpayer to having to pay out, having to give payouts to prisoners. They can't just say, oh, we got it wrong. No, they have to try and make it as though it never happened, as though it never, ever happened. Well, that's wrong. That's wrong, Mr. Speaker, and it just reflects the way this government, they want to do everything fast, they want to make everything go faster, they've got their foot on the accelerator, but no one's got their hands on the steering wheel. And when that happens, it's absolute carnage, Mr. Speaker. That is the result of this government's gung-ho, arrogant attitude to governing. Mr. Speaker, incarcerating people, no matter what they've done, taking away their freedom, that is a core state function that can only be carried out by an elected government and the infrastructure of an elected government. We do not believe that such core state responsibilities should be handed over to the private sector in order for a company like Serco to make a profit. And maybe this was why the Prime Minister is so excited about sending refugees over to Australia, because of course it's Serco that runs those offshore refugee detention centres. Maybe they're going to build another one here in New Zealand. Maybe that's what it's all about. Mr Speaker, we are fundamentally opposed both to this bill and to the supplementary order paper.
David Clendon.
Thank you, Mr Speaker.